Hello, my name is CYOA, and I want to take you on an adventure. High to low fantasy, hard sci fi to space operas, heart wrenching tales which hit you right at your core, to grim dark futures where there is only war. I cherish these stories, which allow a temporary vacation to the fantastic, and I'd like to share some of them with you. Passively reading books and actively playing games are mediums we all enjoy. However, I've been paused with that creative bug, and video games just don't do it for me the way they used to. Whew, I've been chasing another high for a while now. Tabletop RPGs are like a dose of methadone. They allow me enough creative freedom to subside the shakes for a bit, but unfailingly, days later, I'm jonesing again. CEO, I hear you cry. Why don't you just write if you've got such a hard on for creativity? Like any hack will tell you, creating works from scratch, while rewarding, is hard and require a lot of your heart and soul poured into it. As a junkie with a job and a family, the amount of hours autistically grinding away at a story is tough, and daddy needs his fix. That's when I go back to Old Faithful, CYOAs. While there are plenty of places to go to get writing prompts, Reddit having a sub, which is one of the last places worth visiting on that fucking dumpster fire of a site, they only get me chubbing. CYOAs get me to full mast. They got me hooked with simple small stuff like images of a few groups of pills that give you superpowers, but over time, man, they get into you with these long ass multiple page long builds where you can't decide whether you want to min-max or roleplay. It's terrible. If you haven't played any CYOA or even seen them, I'll give you a quick rundown. They're the great-grandchildren of those 70s choose-your-own-adventure books, where you make choices and flip to a certain page for the outcome, like a proto-RPG. CYOAs are more akin to a building scaffolding, giving a framework and structure with clear limitations in order to let the player's creativity flourish. It's usually one image of varying sizes, but can span multiple pages equally long. More often than not, they have a description of the setting, maybe some history and some details about what makes it special, any specific people or groups who are central to the setting but may or may not be focal to the narrative, and who you are, and generally what's your motivation. This is usually followed by sections and subsections of images with a smattering of descriptions relevant to the setting and some flavored text. Sometimes there are pools of points, and a point value attributed to each of the options. This limitation allows a reader to create a build and a narrative around it, begging the reader to ask themselves, what would you pick and why? I've been introduced to CYOAs by a bunch of fat guys who to this day still create threads and crack these bad boys out daily. To those guys, I say thanks. There are also a few subreddits dedicated to them. Imager and Pinterest are covered with them, but more often than not, they're just, hosting reposts. Usually, the etiquette would be that once you create a build, you would post it and maybe create a short little story along with it. Like many lurkers, I've been consuming all the content with nary a post of a build, nor a story, or even a thanks to the hardworking people who create the content I've enjoyed so much. For that, I'm a cad. Yeah, and I'm here to change that. What I'd like to do here is take you on an adventure. I'm going to grab a CYOA, walk through it, discuss the options, their effects, builds, and possible story elements. At the end, I'll choose my options for a build, create a story out of it, and read it to you. Let me know what you think of all of it. From my build, story, good, bad, garbage, I want to hear it all. Also, let me know what you would do differently and why. A lot of these options are really personal, and I love getting the insight of other people. Kind of getting into your head, trying to figure out, like, okay, they picked this, why did they pick that? It's fun for me. And without further ado, let's check out the first CYOA. Unlimited Immortality. The Pantheon of Six. There are 6 groups of immortals that know each other, and now they know you. Their diviners and sages have detected in you a growing light called the Torch. The Torchbearers become immortal when their mortal shell dies. This is called the once death because it will never happen again. After your once death, no amount of disease, pain, torture, fire, or explosions will kill you. You will heal from the worst damages within days. Disease will leave your body within minutes. The 6 groups work together and share their gifts to ensure your success. Choose one group to join. Choose any one boon for in this life and any one boon for forever after. Meaning that after death, you would have 2 boons. You don't lose the first one. To add to this, you may spend 7 points, which represent the other immortals, giving you guidance and instruction. At first glance, this seems overwhelmingly positive. Something about your soul is special. I mean, not only are you one of the few super special snowflakes with a solid version of immortality bundled with a healing factor, but you also get some powers and guidance to boot. However, there are a few things that are nagging at me. First of all, there's no indication that there's any way to die after your once death. That lack of control is somewhat worrying. Like, what's the price to be paid for the gifts bestowed? I mean, I may be a bit paranoid, but why did those groups come together? Why are they so keen on helping me? Why are they working together at all? They want to ensure my success, but my success in what? The simple answer could be an altruistic urge to help someone else in a similar situation to themselves. It has to be pretty scary and lonely, even with, pretty great, mortality with powers and stuff, but to be the only person is a terrifying thing. I think we've all been isolated at one point or another, or at least had the idea of it. So to go out and be able to help other people not feel alone in a situation like that, no, that could definitely feel, that might be it. But, that being said, my brain goes straight to the strings attached. Like, maybe there's something going on. There's some ulterior motive that they want to get you, and they don't want to leave you alone because something. So I think those are some pretty interesting plot hooks. Let's move on to the first group, though. The Paladins. The first of the Pantheon of 6, Paladins live forever to spread the fire of their convictions and hope for mortals. They keep other immortals from revealing themselves or having complete control over mortal society. Paladins will teach the magics of unlimited justice to any who carry the torch. In this life, your word. The Paladins are spirits of justice and will teach any who carry the torch a boon before the once death. This boon will give you revolutionary words. When speaking of your convictions, morals, and beliefs, people will feel the power in your words, and if they have no opinions on the matter, will almost surely adopt yours. Forever after, our word. After the once death, you can become an immortal, inspirational mentor to the agents of change, showing them inspirational ways to bring change. The boon can grant others the boon, your word. If they do not carry the torch, the boon will be short-lived in them, fueled by their conviction alone. The power of the Paladins are due in mana to those who are starved to express themselves to others, but powerless to do so before their once death. When your word says, "will give you revolutionary words," my interpretation is that it will give you words you need in any given moment to express yourself, with not just full clarity, but maximum persuasive effect. In essence, you're an embodiment of Logar Aurelian, a master orator and massively charismatic, just sans the whole demigod, super soldier, Judas who damns all humanity sort of stuff. Other than that, you're fine. You're just random, master of speech. The second boon, our word, seems like it has 3 morally divergent purposes. The first could be going throughout the world, speaking with people, and finding those who you think deserve the chance to effect the most change. By granting them the boon, it's up to them to see if they are capable of being the change they want to see in the world, since the power is fueled by themselves. The second application could be used as a tradable commodity. If another torchbearer without your word would like it for whatever purpose, you can set a price. And if they meet the price or your moral standards, which if you're a paladin they probably would have to, you could trade it to them. A question, however, arises when granting it to other torchbearers. How long does it last? I assume a relatively long time to those who do not carry the torch, but not permanent. If it were permanent, it would probably be something guarded jealously by the other paladins, only traded for the most outrageous requests. The third would be going around converting all you can to your moral belief system, and then recruiting the most devout few to a sort of cabal who are granted the boon, and then go out themselves to convert all others like a virus. This is truly a Zenichi pair of boons. Moving on to the second pantheon, time for the Rovers. The second of the Pantheon of 6, Rovers once made up a group called the Explorers Guild. They live forever to seek out and understand the unknown. They keep other immortals busy by giving them something to do, discovering new and fantastic lands. Rovers will teach the magics of unlimited exploration to any who carry the torch. They spend countless lifetimes recruiting lost loved ones, lost pets, and missing children. You will be called on to restore the lost and find the way. In This Life, Your Book, the Rovers will teach any mortal who carries the torch a boon before the once death. This boon will give you unlimited memory. The rovers keep a secret library of the memories of all who have this boon. In the Great Hopper Library, all your memories are saved as magical books and drawings and recordings sealed in a secret vault. They are sealed away, and only the founder of the guild and yourself can open the vault. Ooh, mysterious. Forever After, our book. After the once death, the rovers teach a second boon that keeps a record of every life you've encountered. By opening any book, you gain access to the seeds to any plant you've tasted, the eggs of any animal you've seen, and even the live young. Pull a kitten from the pages. See and hear and feel in our book the words spoken by any mortal you've ever met. At the Great Hopper Library, no animal or plant ever found by the rovers will ever go extinct. But only you'll know that. This one raises so many questions. There's a secret library that holds the info of all who were granted this boon, but it's only accessible to the founder and myself? Why is that? What is the mystery behind the founder? Why are the rovers no longer called the Explorers Guild? Why is it in general a secret, and to whom? Is it the others outside of the rovers, or to the rovers themselves? What lurid things would be in the rovers' vault of memories? Do other members with the boon only have access to the unlimited memory, and the actual saving is done automatically? So many questions, and the only answers we have are those we make for ourselves. The second boon has some pretty interesting possibilities with life generation, especially if mixed with some of the other boons from other groups, I think later on in the CYOA. At the very least of it, you'll never go hungry. Pop out an egg, a piece of veal, a kitten, whatever, you go to town. Not the most morally ethical thing, but you won't go hungry. The other part of this massive boon allows you to have space and time pseudo-omniscience. The possibilities for interpersonal good and evil are immense. Say you meet an asshat and you want to know what his deal is. Fucking Kyle. Go back through his past and figure out that Uncle Terry used to play Mineshaft Explorers when they were alone. You could use that info to help heal the jackass to a less turd-like existence, or break him utterly. By dropping creepy euphemisms and phrases that only Terry used to use before he bludgeoned and blasted his bewildered backside with bursting baby batter. With this power, you can explore the life of others and become the ultimate empath, or the ultimate voyeur. Now we move on to the genies. What is there to be said about genies that hasn't already been said? They aren't slaves, and they aren't bound to live in tiny little lamps. Unless they want to. Yes, they give out wishes, but only if they want to. Genies will teach the magics of unlimited wishes to any who carry the torch. The first boon is in this life, your coin. The genie are I wish they called them jinn. The genie are spirits of gratification and will teach any mortal who carry the torch a boon before the once death. This boon will give you a magic coin that you can't lose. It grants you as much money in any denomination as you'd like, endlessly. There will be no taxes or government snooping, thank God. But most immortals don't take this boon, but instead rely on other immortals who have, sometimes owing them strange debts in exchange. Forever After, our wish. This boon is only available to members of the genie, but not all genie choose it. It is a calling. After the once death, you become an immortal genie, forever being called on by mortals to give out wishes. Wishes create an alternate Earth, where the person who received the wish is sent to live out the consequences. These wishes can affect you in any way, as you exist outside of their alternate Earth. It's called our wish because genies must agree to the wish, and aren't compelled to give out wishes at all. Genies have no other limits on their wishes. Like extra wishes, love, or reincarnation, they can raise an army of undead who love and fear their master. Weird example, but alright. Let's begin by addressing your coin. I was a little on and off about this. At first I thought, what's the point of having it if, 1,000 years go by and you make a bunch of investments and you effectively have unlimited cash? But I was thinking that, that's a lot of time. And sure, one could say, you have nothing but time. Why not spend it to learn economics and to learn and understand how to invest and make a ton of cash? You'll have that forever. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, especially with all of these other perks allowing you to go out and adventure and see things. And if you can go out and do anything, why waste your time with learning how to make some money. If you have unlimited cash, from the get-go, you could really go anywhere, do anything, could pay off anybody with anything. Some people say everybody has a price, and you have that, and let's say it's a couple thousand years in the future. With genetic engineering, you can go and pay to upgrade your body to be peak human form and have some cool sort of animal spliced powers that you might not otherwise have access to if you didn't have the cash for it. So this one isn't as terrible as I thought to begin with, but it's still not really something I would pick. All right, changing gears and going to the Forever After Our Wish. This is the first boon only available to the group who gives them out, the genie. In effect, this is the Western conception of the jinn, the genie from Aladdin, but without any of the downsides. All of the unlimited cosmic power and none of the consequences. I mean, not for you at least. The people who make the wishes, however, may not be so lucky. Just picture this. A lone specter of justice, slowly but surely making their way through the corrupt and depraved of our world. People in the upper echelons of our society begin to disappear, and the only common factor is meeting with this mysterious stranger. This person is you. You make your way into their world by posing as some sage or mystic to the more spiritually open members of the upper crust, some CEO's wife or why not. You grant them a small, harmless, mundane, temporary wish. Send them to an alternate universe, but bring them back once it's done. Grant a wish for, I wish I could fly, or if I could be one with my, great Aunt Debbie who left. Bam, they get it for a week. They come back. Whoa, their world is totally changed. And now they become your most vocal advocate of you and your ability to commune with the spirit world and set their spirits free or whatever bullshit you want to feed them. They introduce you to more of their people, gaining you influence and access. From there you mark your targets, giving the moderately moral mini vacations. This keeps you in their good graces through the chaos to come, since you're the only one offering the drug you're selling. Escapism. And when you finally get to your target, you offer them far more, persuading them to make grandiose wishes, indulging in their deepest, darkest, most depraved fantasies. And that's when you snap. You send them to an alternate universe, where you warp their already twisted desires into a never-ending hellscape, giving them the punishment they would have never received in this unjust world. Or, you can do the exact opposite, become a spirit of mercy, travel across the world to the sick and dying kids, becoming a sort of Make-A-Wish personified, granting kids with an eternal respite from their suffering, that or just fulfill the life they never had a chance to live, allowing them to live out an ideal version of their wildest innocent fantasies. The genie boons are ones that I shift from thinking that they're the most interesting and engaging boons to have to little to no interest. I usually have to feed it time, like the way you kindle a fire to kind of get into the concept. Let's move on over to fiends. There are many misconceptions about fiends. Many assume they are in league with demonic forces or the devil himself. But the truth is, these immortal incubus/succubus don't have any more concrete evidence about the afterlife, except for their boon, or gods and demons than you do. Fiends will teach the magics of unlimited desire to any who carry the torch. In this life, your souls is the first boon. The fiends will teach any mortal who carry the torch a boon before the once death. This boon will allow you to reach into a misty astral portal and pull out damaged and misbegotten souls of the dead. These are people who lead lives as beggars and junkies and slaves. Slaves? The astral forms can be shaped into new appearances and brought back into the mortal realms, often on binding conditions of servitude. Slaves? It's anyone's guess where the fiends got their reputation. Forever After Our Desires. This boon is available to any immortal, but mostly only fiends choose it. It is a calling. After the once death, you will be forever tasked with bringing carnal desires to people who are unfulfilled. Any who ask you for sex will get it, one way or another. You will share their desires and experience them with the person who asks. That sounded weird. That was a weird sentence. You will Their desires become our desires. You would use your magics and boons to help this person become a sexually desirable person who also shares your desires. The idea is like that of a paladin. You want to spread your sexual morals. You want to develop people into sexual creatures who can find fulfillment without you. You're turning incels into chads. Profit. Regarding the Your Soul boon, I'm struck with a mix of possibilities and implications. The possibilities are once again at both ends of the moral spectrum. One could be an angel, a virtue, pulling the damned from the other world and giving them a chance at redemption and life again in your service. It says they can be brought back into new appearances, but I wonder if, as a condition of their servitude, their appearance can be altered afterwards, like if you wanted to use their souls as weapons of holy might. One moment you're walking around with an entourage, the next you're kitted out in a suit of armor and a big-ass sword like a weeb's wet dream. And on the other end of the spectrum, you reach out to those endless hordes of the dead who would give anything to just be alive again and offer them a chance of fulfilling their dream. You play the part as a kind, altruistic master only wanting to help those unfortunately mortally challenged people, when in reality your intentions are only self-serving, offering barely anything from you for an army of appearance-altered bimbo slave bodyguards attending your every whim. Now both a pimp and a private military contractor able to muster up a platoon of unkillable maid soldiers doing your every bidding. I mean, so there's a lot you can do. Now, the implications of this is that there's definitely something in the afterlife. That people have to come to terms with. I mean, not you, of course, because you're immortal, but other people. I know I would definitely become a more spiritual person, knowing that there's some sort of afterlife. And I could hear you already saying, well, CYOA, you're immortal. Wouldn't that already make you think that there was something after? Well, definitely give me a pretty huge pause. But it, plus the magic, could be something wholly natural. Then again, there's the epistemological questions that come up about like what we can and can't know about the natural world, and if it's all natural given our limited senses, would we discount the possibility of some deity? It's just like a bunch of circles. I'm not smart enough to know. Either way, I don't know. What I do know is people are getting grabbed from hell, the warp, Detroit, somewhere that's just not good. And I don't have much of a fetish for the Coomer Crusader. The idea of a succubus paladin spreading their kinks doesn't super appeal to me. But hey, let me know what you think. I'm open to changing my mind. If some of you degenerates out there have a good reasoning for it or something, be my guest, let me know. But this one, not really my thing. Moving on to the Muses. The Muses never formally joined the Six. They just showed up one day to the meetings. God, I hate the way this is written. This is pretty neat CYOA, but the way things are phrased, it's not great. Muses will teach the magics of unlimited imagination to any who carry the torch. In this life, your childhood, the Muses will teach any mortals who carry the torch a boon before the once death. This boon will allow you to become a wellspring of imagination. The innocence of childhood learning returns. Your mind can learn like a child and is mutable and elastic. Ideas and creativity well up inside you. Now to the second boon. Forever after our innocence. After the once death, the Muses teaches a second boon that leads you to forever finding people of the world who lost their spark to abuse and drugs in an unkind world. You can bring them to a place where all of that is healed away. This power allows you to see auras of living things to discern information about their innocence. Drug use, sexual activity, abuse, and other things can be learned. Only those with this boon can find those who carry the torch. It is a great responsibility to discover the rare mortals among us who have not seen the once death, and auras of the undiscovered can sometimes be seen from miles away. So, Muses, the weird kid at high school lunch who showed up but didn't shit themselves, so you decided to chill. The first boon alters your brain to be far more malleable. You'll be able to be hyper-creative, but learning languages should be far easier as well, if you're more open like a child. However, I wonder if this messes with your brain permanently. A pseudo-state of arrested development. Constantly learning but warped. The more I think about it, it seems almost wrong. For as much as this rubs me in a strange way, the second boon comes across as almost unambiguously good. Not only are you able to see and help those less fortunate, you are the gatekeepers to those newly inducted to the groups. However, the more I think about it, I can see a different, more devious take on it. Mixed with the Paladin's first boon, one could use their enhanced words to take advantage of the hurt and downtrodden to get them to do their bidding, like a cult leader. Or the Fiend's first boon, if one were a total scoundrel and the groups didn't have a real stance on killing of mortals, one can go out and find ruined souls, kill them, and offer them contracts for their servitude. That'd be truly devious. Wouldn't be what I would do, but, you kind of got to play. I don't know, I'm just trying to think of, when I see these, I think about what are all of the possibilities of what you can do with it, and what are these weird sort of edge cases that weirdos would go and take advantage of. And that seems like something a bunch of perverts online would do. You know, you've thought about weird stuff like this. Don't do it. Don't do it. Moving on to the final group, the Fae. This group claims to be the oldest and one of the last to join the Six. They dislike the restrictions of the Paladins and chafe at having to reel in their impulses to trick and humiliate mortals. They will teach the magics of unlimited adventure to any who carry the torch. In this life, your life. That's their first boon. The Fae are spirits of adventure and would teach any mortal who carry the torch. A boon before the once death. This boon will give you an eventful life, full of change and adventure. Fun and friendly people will forever be showing up at your doorsteps, bringing exciting times and accompanied by old friends who love your company. There is always somewhere to go and something to do. Your energy and stamina to do it are boundless. You need not sleep, but often do. Wink. Forever after our life is the second and last boon. Let's give it a round of applause for getting through this all the way. All right. After the once death, you become an immortal Fae and gain a type of portal magics to enter a realm or world populated by your kind without restrictions on your actions. This is a place where the Fae say all magic comes from and is a place of dragons and wizards and quests and treasure. Oh, Lord, that's speaking my language. Oh, that sounds pretty great. Also sounds entirely chaotic, way too crazy, like... You know, if there's no restrictions on anything you're doing, I mean, it's like the Gaelic Fae. You know, it's a place of beauty and wonder. And sure, everything kind of sort of wants to kill you, but if you're a psychotic immortal, you don't really care. It's great. You know, as an adventurer myself, the Fae lifestyle and boon really speaks to me. Not just an immortal with the first boon, but an immortal with enough energy to bounce off the walls after a week partying and doing blow and tons of heroin and exploring. Ah, truly, it's a major contender with the Rovers, since it warps the universe around you to be more exciting. The panacea for the one true curse of an immortal, boredom. The second boon is like icing on the first boon's delicious chocolatey cake. Oh, so good. I think it's pure potential these two have that I love, you know, and potential is one of the few things that really gets me by the long hairs. You know, in most things, I really dig potential, you know, like ice powers or something. You know, when I think about everything you can do, you know, this is a small little tangent, but like, let's say somebody's like a cryokinetic, right? And you have pyrokinetics and geokinetics and all sorts of other things. I always feel like ice has just more potential for uses than all of the other ones, right? You want to build big structures that you can move on, like geokinetics, like people who deal with Earth. You build big walls of ice. You know, you want to go through the ocean, you turn all the water to ice, make sharp, you know, needles you're shooting at people. And these are all just, I mean, it's got a ton of utility, a bunch of stuff if you want to fight, you know, God knows why you're fighting stuff. But hey, you got magic, you're probably fighting someone somewhere. Yes. So the Fae, fantastic. Now we're moving on to the powers given by guidance. Now here, these are the ones of unlimited justice. Soldiers of Fortune is the first one. Just a thing of note, everything here says cost of 1. You know, I don't really think that's going to be used throughout this whole thing, but hey, everything costs 1. They're just one of the 7. So, Soldiers of Fortune, you create an aura of gratitude around yourself. Any good deeds done around you or by you will result in rewards. No good deed will go unnoticed or unrewarded. Sometimes the reward is monetary and sometimes karmatic, but good intentions and good deeds go a long way around you. Now, it sounds like my kind of boon. Gonna go a little weird here on you, but this aura, more than anything else in the CYOA, is a pretty good argument for the existence of a benevolent God in this universe. Now, hear me out. Using the power of your eternal soul flame, you create an aura which incentivizes you to do good by making the universe around you reward you for it. That sounds like a huge carrot. You know, no real stick to that. Think about it. All of the people who would otherwise not be moral actors are ironically, in an entirely selfish move, change themselves through the due to this perk and become avatars of altruism. And you know, who are we if not what we repeat and what we do and what becomes a habit, right? You know, what we do once or twice isn't really us, but our habits become who we are as people, or at least I think so. The next is Unseal the Stubborn Mind. When faced with evidence, proof, or new knowledge, old beliefs and desires will give way. Around you, no mind is ever completely unmoved. Sometimes the best weapon is a good pie chart. This seems like a 12-year-old atheist's wet dream. This allows the most honest and open discussion possible. This almost seems like a glamour, in that if there are people who are open to having their minds change, I imagine if they have some sort of seemingly legitimate disagreement internally, they would argue that outward, hence leading to more honest discussion and more empathy between you and whomever you're speaking with. Next is Excelsior. Ever upwards, ever higher, at any time you can call upon fate to move you, literally, to new places that does not share your beliefs or morals. This is great for spreading your beliefs to new peoples and new worlds. But the catch is you can't return home without making at least 3 new converts to your beliefs, unless you have some other power. This is perfect for someone with a great moral compass and purpose who wants to spread their beliefs, but at heart is an adventurer who really wants to see everything, which I definitely empathize with. The only huge thing that comes to mind with this power is that mixed with the Unseal the Stubborn Mind, it's a perfect match. The things you could do, otherwise, if you go somewhere where people are just stuck in their ways and don't want to hear anything else, you might have a really rough time. Not with this one, though. Should be solid. The final power you gain from guidance of others is war. Some people believe there is no better place to prove your mettle and discover your weaknesses than war. At any time, you can decide to appear in a war zone. This might be anywhere in a vast multiverse. Without some other means of travel, you can only return home if you have proven yourself, I assume this means found some meaning in battle. Now, as an immortal with no fear of death and nothing but time in your hands, the idea of being a Zealotist Crusader sounds, at least in theory, fucking incredible. The only thing I'm concerned about is not being able to return home, unless you found some meaning in battle. Or, another ship or something. As an immortal, I have to imagine it would be somewhat jaded, or at least wizened to most of what you come to find out, at least after 10,000 years or so. At least if you hate where you're at, you could always teleport to another battlefield somewhere. You don't necessarily even have to finish your war or the campaign or whatever. You're fighting around, you're like, damn, I really, really hate killing people with Stone Age weapons. I'm in some sort of old caveman thing. The only women around here have more hair, on their chest than I do on my entire body. Teleport out of there, you go on to some sort of future place where people are shooting things that make your head explode. It's crazy, Tyranids are everywhere. Yeah, war is hell. Moving on to the next set of powers from the Rovers, Unlimited Exploration. And the first one is, it's dangerous to go alone. This is a part of the fire from your torch, so they do need to meet up with you at least once every 10 years to renew the flame. I said earlier that the Fey Boon was the answer to the one true curse of immortality. That wasn't quite true. There is another, and that is the loss of everyone you know or grow to love. This will allow you to soften that blow. It's true, life has its dizzying highs and crushing lows, and I have to imagine losing the ones you love must be down there with the worst of them. But this boon allows you to forestall it almost indefinitely. I assume this is not quite infinite, but almost, so maybe in 1,000,000 years their mortal shell gives out. But in practice, it's making those you choose immortal with you. It seems like you're much more likely to be stuck in a situation where you can't get to them for like 10 years than them staying with you for 1,000,000, honestly. That or them choosing to want to die after a while. Being immortal without having the rest of the powers or anything else has to probably be exhausting. You probably find a groove like every 100 years or so that you kind of get into. But I have to imagine around a year 1,000, you're just like, well, this has been really fun knowing you. I've had a great run, but I'm just ready to go. So I love you. Please don't renew this boon. What I really like about this boon is that it helps you not have to worry about the dangerous scarring effects that adventuring probably brings to people. And you might want to keep people who are softer, who aren't suited to that life alive without needing them to be in close proximity. You could allow them to grow and be their own people. And just come back and see them and appreciate them for who they are every couple of years. This option allows you to develop portal magics that will instantly take you somewhere you've never been. This is the ultimate adventurer's option. There isn't a lot to say. This will keep you busy for your long, immortal life. Find the way is the next power. You will never get lost or trapped or imprisoned. You can always find a way out or a way forward. This is the universe-altering power that I didn't even know I wanted. When I want to go out and explore the world around me, I'll occasionally get a wild hair up my ass and look for some caves around where I live to go check out or go spelunking. But the more I think about it, the more this irrational fear gnaws at the back of my mind. What if I get lost in a cave system, or as soon as you shove your body down some hole, a massive tectonic shift occurs and your only means of escape is now blocked off, and now you only have a few days to get accustomed to your new subterranean grave? Now, I'm pretty sure that won't happen, but having this is like insurance that no matter where you go or what you do, so long as you keep pushing and keep struggling, you'll find a way. It makes me think of those pulpy action adventure movies where the hero is running from some threat and they don't have the foggiest idea of where they're going, but God knows they aren't staying there. As I'm watching, I'm constantly wondering, what the hell? What if you end up stuck somewhere and become some super spooky calcium-enriched decor? Now I just assume they learn this magic or something. The final power is the true secrets. With forever to search and forever to explore, you seek the true... The last and final magical power for unlimited exploration is the true secrets. With forever to search and forever to explore, you seek the true answers. The road is long and answers well hidden, but with enough time you could always find the answers to any questions. A priceless perk for an immortal life, the assurance and peace of mind that out there, somewhere, there is always an answer. I can imagine there are those out there who relish the ambiguity of life, never knowing for sure. I can appreciate that insofar as I can see not choosing to look for some answers, really kind of letting the mystery live out there. But cutting myself off entirely, when you have the chance, the opportunity to really know for certain that if I just push a little harder, I'll be able to find the answer and not just be strung along forever. Nah, I can't abide by that. Moving on to the powers of the genie, unlimited wishes. Now, real quick before we get into it, I gotta make a note about the art. Up until now, the art always seemed like it fit the group's theme and kind of the powers that they represented. These, they just don't, they do not fit. They seem like some sort of Tumblr art. Now, I'm not saying the artist is probably good, probably way far better artist than I, and their anatomy's probably great. But God, these sort of choices, they're rough looking, and it doesn't speak to me at all. Starting with fluidity. This aspect of being a water genie can be learned by any immortal. The trick here is that people don't often know what they really want. Allow a person to enter a small, timeless grotto, surrounded by waterfalls. This place allows a person to see and feel the consequences of their past and future choices, helping them discover their true desires and intentions. It is also a place of great rest for those who are worn down or hurt. This seems like a really helpful tool for someone who wants to be a guardian angel or just someone out to help their fellow man. Currents. A genie of air is an expert in seeing the results of each wish. Each person who gets a wish spins off to an alternate Earth, separate from the rest. This power allows you to see any number of alternate Earths and wishes being played out. This power is used both to locate alternate Earths that might be useful in granting wishes, and also in showing people how similar wishes have worked out for others. Another kind of guardian angel perk, but also applicable to voyeurs of all kinds. Blossoms, the worst of the pictures. That is until the fiends, dear God. With this power, you can predict any ensuing butterfly effect from unintended consequences and cause future life to blossom in ways that direct it towards your intents. For example, a person says he wants his children to marry nice people. You can control the blossoming of the nice people to a place in their path. Or, you want an island nature preserve protected and defended? So you direct the local community to grow and develop in ways that revere the island. An indirect hand and a master of causality. Pretty neat for party tricks and world domination. Paladins can't stop you from taking over the world if you're not actively doing it. Truly the most Zinchian of perks. Well, that next to the one about secrets. Trickster. As an immortal, you will see a shockingly high number of repeating patterns in the desires of those you meet. Many endless wishes will be made for wealth. Blah, blah, blah. With this power, you are allowed to twist the desires of those around you, especially people making wishes, so that their wish is subverted to be more interesting for you, or original. This would be the reverse of a monkey's paw. You don't twist the wish, you twist the desire. It's all out there in the description for this perk. It seems like it would be for those who truly enjoy watching those they grant wishes to squirm. Unlimited desires, truly a degenerate set of powers. We're going to start off with delightful shame. Such emotions are attached to desires. Often there are tears and shame and pain. Power allows you to incite a deep catharsis in anyone expressing desires once held back and repressed. This experience can be life-changing and quite pleasurable. Delightful shame is another of dual potential, used by either therapists helping those with repressed desires due to trauma come to terms with who and what they are so they can move forward healthily, and as a much Slaneshier ability, forcing others to give into their depraved, darkest desires so you can siphon the pleasure from it. The next power is dye my eyes to match my gown. This is shapeshifting.
Shapeshifting.
Most immortals learned this from the fiends, and perhaps is the only reason they were allowed to join the Six. The actual power is astral projection, with the travel of the outer planes and moving your spirit disconnected from your body, but your spirit responds to your mental commands to move and reform. You could fly through the astral plane by moving your spirit. You can use that same force to reshape your spirit. When you return to your body, the body reshapes to match the spirit. Now this is a little weird. This power got me thinking. What is your spirit? Is it your torch? Your soul? I always thought those words were synonymous for each other. Why is your soul so easily malleable? I've always thought if a soul were to be made manifest, it would be an amalgamation of who we are, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I thought it wasn't something so easily shaped and deformed. Only major life events could transform it or trauma scar it. Age and experience shaping and slowly forming the soul to its shape like water and wind wearing down rocks on a cliff face. Basically a stand from JoJo, but entirely who you are and not just your fighting spirit. If this were the case, the idea that you can just shape it to whatever you wanted would be terrifying. Because if that is who you are as a person, you are short-sightedly warping the core of who you are. I imagine it would be like you are in the astral plane and hold on to this core desire, this ideal to change your body to become X, and like a ripple of water in a still pond, the changes flow out from the center point, and your spirit reforms to whatever it is you wanted it to be. The fundamental problem I see with this is that the core of your being, the kernel of it, is this idea that you need to be changed. This would thus cause a feedback loop, increasing the urge to go back and change yourself. Since any gratification of a change is predicated on the new you being layered and relative to the old you were before, you're not going to get anything from this. Since you're outright warping who you are, there is no history to this new form, and thus the feeling of satisfaction drops proportionately to the growing anxiety and the feeling of needing to change. This eventually reaches an asymptotic point to everyone who has done this, where their form becomes so changed and gross, this malevolent, malformed monster, kind of like a chaos spawn, to where they go look out to the world, and they're so upset with themselves, all they can do is lash out with their now deformed, bubblegum-looking, nasty-ass tentacle appendages. Man, these beings are foul. I can see this happening to a few people, and then the sort of group of immortals realize this, ban shapeshifting altogether. It's a poison chalice, and truly a fiendish gift indeed. Sorry about the tangent, but that caught my imagination a little bit. I kind of wanted to go into that. Next up is dye their eyes to match my gown. Repeat after me. You feel good about obeying me. You cannot disobey. When you obey, you will feel erotic pleasure. This is the power of mind control. You can turn tears into powder that, when ingested, makes a person receptive to commands. A sickeningly strong power. I do enjoy the caveat that you need to make them ingest powdered tears. But is anyone surprised that the fiends have a date rape drug as their power? Not me. I was thinking if you had this, you could make a killing. Paying a bunch of people with overactive tear ducts like $30 an hour for a week to store up and vial a bunch of their tears. Then you could sell the powder for disgustingly high profits, just like the fiend you are.
Also, heresy!
Now that we're back from that vileness, unlimited imagination. A muse for muses. Arts. You become skilled in all arts and gain the ability to bestow these singular abilities onto others. Singing is an art that can help people escape poverty, and it allows expression of your inner soul. Crafts. You become skilled in all crafts and gain the ability to bestow these singular abilities onto others. Sewing is a craft that can help people escape poverty, and it allows expression of your inner soul. Both arts and crafts I have similar feelings on. Both are things that, given an immortal lifespan, I think I would want to be able to master them on my own anyway. So selfishly, I kind of think these would be a waste. However, if you wanted to be a true muse, inspiration made manifest, then you found your calling. I've never really had the urge to be a muse, but if anyone would want to sell me on the sort of romantic idea of being a muse and inspiring people to create great art, let me know in the comments, because I still don't feel it. But I want to. Ideation. With a gentle touch, this power resets the internal habits of the brain and stops all routines. They might forget to brush their teeth, but at least they don't binge eat or take drugs anymore. A truly terrifying ability. Mixed with the above, one could truly mind break people. Healing touch. With but a touch, you can cause wounds to heal, cure disease, and stop the negative effects caused by trauma, like shock and PTSD. You could use it on yourself, but you are immortal and would heal from any damage naturally over time anyway. Like the first two Muse options, this is pretty self-explanatory. Help and heal others, do good, yada yada yada. However, having this ability would definitely help on an adventure. Out in the dangerous wilds with your mortal retinue, if one got nabbed by a Bengal tiger and doesn't immediately die, being able to save your fellows would be priceless. Mwah. On to the Fae, the most wild and ridiculous unlimited adventure powers. Size control the living. You have the power to control the size of any plants and animals, including people, you can see. You can make a person less than 1 inch tall or the size of a giant. This works on bits and pieces of living things too, which is a power fiends are always looking for, much to your amusement. Pseudo shape-shifting without the whole soul-tainting thing. Too big for a hole in a wall? Shrink yourself down. Some punks dissing your fly girl. See how they like dealing with a 12-foot-tall orc of a man. Need to assert dominance? Scrow some dangly bits and slap them on the table till it breaks and show them who's boss. The possibilities are endless, like your bits. Size control the unliving. You can shrink or grow inanimate things like houses or computers. If you put the Empire State Building in your pocket, the paladins will come looking for you, though. They might get angry. I love the potential for this option as well. Are you hungry and only have crumbs? Now you have bread for a week. Are you outnumbered and a group of bastards dare to approach you? Well, sucks to be then, because you grew an opening in the porous holes in the limestone floor you were standing on. It shrunk their surrounding area, leaving an opening chasm in the floor for them to fall into. Who needs a bag of holding when you can store everything you need in a small foam-lined pouch for safekeeping? Home wards. You can place magical wards around places that prevent mortals from crossing the threshold, which is helpful if you live in a toadstool. A little more niche, but I think with creativity you can come up with some pretty neat things. I had a devious thought. What if you traveled across the world, splitting it off with a ward from pole to pole and across the equator, leaving the world divided into quadrants? Trade could still occur with drones, unmanned ships, or trains, where there are stations set up right across the ward borders to pass goods through, but people could not. So presumably air travel would be this horrible mess where a plane would fly and the mortals would be stuck in the ward like birds on a window, but the plane's still going so their bodies get mushed up and either seep or rip through the now unmanned, crashing plane. Horrible to be sure, but imagine 10,000 years in the future. No crossbreeding between the quadrants, apart from occasional shipments of sperm and eggs, but imagine the divergent evolution. You know, unless the biomes, I guess, are specifically carved off different places, I'd have to imagine convergent evolution would take place. Even if we can't get different breeds of humans, it's almost worth it to see the novelty, maybe. And finally, curiouser and curiouser. With this power, you can control anyone's response to the discovery of your power and extended life. You can have them feel any emotion you'd like, such as wonder or boredom, but you can also cause them to forget the discovery. Outside of the obvious effects, like keeping people in the dark for your secret identity, there's a million things you can do. Spider-Man route, keep people in the dark for your secret identity. Don't let them worry. You know, they're 110, you're 110. You look like you're still 25. They look like they're about to die. Sure. Or you could do the interesting route. You know, be a small-town cult leader rock star who people fawn and adore over because they just can't help it. Man, he's so cool. He's got all these powers. Who wouldn't want to be with him? God! So many options like that. Most of them are immoral, but you know, I wouldn't do it. But hey, why not? Limits, the final section. These give rough drawbacks which make your life harder in exchange for more power, used to overcome these new limits and the obstacles you would have had anyway. These 3 limits are really interesting plot hooks, which make stories far more engaging. The first one is doomed to die. Death is real, and by real I think they mean like a physical entity, and the Force despises immortals. It has located you before the Muses. Your once death will come soon, and it will be unexpected and possibly very painful. Gain an extra boon, and that can be in this life or forever after, although I have to imagine this life would be pretty short-lived. Now, this poses a lot of questions. Why does Death want to kill me? He knows I'll only become more powerful when I die. What does he gain from killing me outside of, a spiteful jab? I think this may work in conjunction with other plot hooks from earlier in the CYOA. I'll get to that in a moment. But some more questions. How will death come for me? Will it be like Final Destination, or will it be a manifestation of death himself, like personifications of different types of death coming in waves? Maybe it could be something like a big watery muck-like thing from Pokemon with a skull for a face, and it's all coming at you like a terrible shonen. It's a horrible idea, but it could be something else, like maybe
different sort of cultures, the way we all look at death and we internalize it and we deal with it. So Greek would be, how we think of Thanatos, and maybe sort of a Greek play sort of mask like thing with the scythe, and then Chinese sort of things, however they personify as death in their mythology, and all sorts of different ways in the underworld, Hades. It's just different ones are coming at you and constantly having to deal with that. Oppose schools. Choose any one school of magic to buy at half cost, and another where you can't buy any magic, period. Your immortal days and nights will be rife with intersect politics, forever engaged in one-upsmanship against your opposed school. Not bad conflict, nor bad benefits. If you're going to go all in for perks and schools, that meaning that there'd be 2 extra magics, and that's assuming that there isn't other magics in the world not shown in the CYOA, which, I think there would. Sure, it's not super relevant to the ones you're picking, but I'm thinking maybe you could, they might make it easier to learn those particular school of magics in the world. I think this would be really cool. It can be played as like a rivalry that I think this can range in some pretty interesting ways, It could either be really, carefree and not too big of a deal. I'm going to get you, Fiend House. Just you wait for the fish in your air filter. To deep sectarian violence, where immortals puppeteer governments and throw mortal lives at one another just to get back at each other for slights felt thousands of years ago that no one even remembers anymore. But what they do remember, what they feel on their long, immortal bones, is a hatred for Fiend House. God damn you, Fiend House! Unique enemy is the last limit, and the last thing we're going to be looking at today. Unique enemy. You gain a unique enemy who's immortal, perhaps death, an angel, an elf, a lich, or other undead, or even a true demon. Why does this person hate and hunt you? How do you stop an immortal? Gain +2 points, which I imagine are for powers. A fantastic hook. I can imagine digging into the secret libraries of the Rovers, or digging deep into the Fiend's powers and learning more arcane knowledge about the afterlife, where both the forces of heaven and hell are gunning for you, not to kill you, but to immobilize or utilize you for their own machinations. After long, hard, grueling, arduous even, deliberation, I've made my choice, and we're going to start with the limits. The only limit I'm going to take is Doom to Die. And with that, we're going to get our extra boon and the eternal animosity of death. Let's bounce right back up and get our first 2 original boons, which are going to be your book and our book respectively. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, CEO, what's going on? I thought you thought so highly of the phase boons, right? Why are you possibly going with that one? It's an adventure. It's close to your heart. Well, I'll tell you. That question leads right to the main question of why does death want you dead? That question leads all the way up to the tippy top, to the founder of the Explorers Guild. Now, I'm telling you, brother, you need to go watch out for these Rothbergs and these Goldchilds, because we're going to find the truth. And when in the truth here is going to be a conspiracy, the likes of which you've never seen. Do you know why only you and the founder can open the vault? It has to do with your torch, and that's why death wants you dead. All torches that we carry within us are as different as the people they are themselves, and the luminosity of the founder's torch as well as yours are off the charts. They are blazing like suns, and the key to the vault is an especially bright torch, and so far only the founder as well as yourself are the only 2 able to do it. Now, within the vault lies treasure. What treasure is it, CEO? I'll tell you, brother. Now, that treasure lies something man has sought for time immemorial. Some call it the Philosopher's Stone. Others, the Fountain of Youth. The religious, the Holy Grail. Regardless of the name, the effect is the same. Immortality for the mortally inclined. Yes, that is both what death loathes and fears. It's not the immortal that is part of the natural cycle that is born to live forever and be a constant in the great universal equation. No, it is the mortal who is born to die, but is then added as a constant to fuck everything up. To harness such ancient and arcane magics, one needs of an especially powerful immortal soul within the confines of a mortal shell. The mortal shell is more closely tied to this universe than that of an immortal's. An immortal's shell, their body, is conjured up from the sheer strength and willpower of the torch. When an immortal transfers across multiverses, using, let's say, the Jinn power, their shell disapparates with them as they transfer across these multiverse bounds. Since it's a product of their willpower, it then leaves along with the willpower and consciousness of their soul. To change the natural order of this prime universe, one needs to be as closely bound to it as possible. Now let's get back to the founder of the guild. Now this guy was super charismatic. He brought all these other people to him. He created the guild before his once death. So in going out and seeing all there was to see of the world, he found through all the ancient tomes and arcane texts, he found the means to immortality. Right? And with the very close-knit members of the guild back then, he committed the rituals, he did all the things he had to do, and he became an immortal. Then the guild founder went off with, his core members of the guild and explored the rest of the earth and bestowed the powers of immortality to all of these new, previously mortal rulers. They became powerful kings, philosopher kings who ruled wisely and justly as befit their age. But over time they became mad and corrupt, for although their bodies did not tarnish over time, their souls did dim. And they committed these heinous acts, using magics to kill hundreds of thousands at a time and keep millions more alive and suffering, on the brink of death but out of his clutches. And so the paladins had to bring the fight to these now demon-like kings and overthrow their rule. However, since they could not be killed, they had to be caged down deep in the earth, never to corrupt the realms of man again. This is why the paladins keep such a firm grip on the immortals, and why death will never allow this to happen again. Whether it was through guilt, or shame, or just his wandering spirit, the founder mysteriously disappeared among the multiverse, leaving the guild without any guidance. This leaderlessness left the guild fractured to hence be known as the Rovers. The elder members hold among themselves a secret mission to find their guild leader and reunite the Explorers Guild. To what end? No one outside their circles know. With that in mind, the extra boon is going to be the Fey one, the Your Life. This universe-altering adventure will allow you the heads-up you need to escape the instantaneous surprise of death, which would end the adventure before it begins. Keeping that in mind, the extra boon is going to be the Fey Your Life. This universe-altering adventure will allow you the heads-up you need to escape the instantaneous surprise of death, which would end up, ending the adventure before it even begins. In terms of the magics gained through guidance, obviously all 4 from the Unlimited Exploration are immediate picks. The last 3 are interesting, though. I like the idea of the universal karma coming back to help or hinder people based on their actions, so Soldier of Fortune is another, certain pick. It speaks to me personally. The last 2 are troublesome. I'm stuck between the Unseal the Stubborn Mind, Size Control of the Living and Unliving. Now, I know I'd want Unseal the Stubborn Mind if I were to specifically choosing these powers for my own life. But for a story, I think the utility of both the size control options may have more potential. Or maybe not. I mean, the Unseal the Stubborn Mind is like a nerfed Jedi mind trick. Now, I know the utility for the Unliving is really good, but I think I'm just going to have to finally give it to the Living and the Unseal the Stubborn Mind because, I don't know, just so much extra stress and bullshit we don't have to deal with if you get the Unseal the Stubborn Mind. And honestly, those long, dong, possibilities, as degenerate as they may be, with the Living, it seems like a benefit I'd like to have. All right, now that we've done the Unlimited Immortality from top to bottom, let's tie this off with a little bow and leave it with a short story. Now, this is the first time I've really done anything creative writing-wise, so let me know how it is at the bottom, how terrible or okay or whatever you liked or don't like about it. I'd love to hear the feedback because, I'm new at this and I'm open to all sorts of improvement suggestions because that's what life is. It's an adventure, and on adventures you got to grow or you die. So let's start it off. Ding dong. The chime makes eyes flicker awake for a moment. No light from the window, the shadow of the state's largest oak assisting the anesthesia. His body acknowledging the world and then shutting it out for at least 5 more hours. Ding dong. Mind awake now, but body unmoved. He gambles on hope that someone, anyone, would save him from this horrid fate and leave him to his dank, dark realm. Ding dong. Shit. Is mumbled through drool-moistened lips. Like a freshly employed drunk realizing that his beer with lunch turned into 5 rounds, his stagger is pronounced and frenzied. Stumbling around in the void, kicking aside freshly crusted underwear and half-eaten tubs of cake icing, he searches through it through half-open, sleep-deprived eyes. Ding dong! Fingers dig deep, grabbing more wood than cushion. He flings his old commuter chair, the soft texture of the warm pleather rubbing off at his touch.
Vision coming into focus, he spots them, his pair of holiday pajama pants, fluffy in a previous life, now matted and laying under a crumb-covered frozen cardboard pizza circle. He winces and recoils at the sight, reaching for the tender pink burn mark which ran down his chest. It was his first place prize for the award-winning idea of tacoing a still piping hot pizza and trying to eat it shirtless. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. The sons of bitches. What if someone was home? He thought to himself as he stomped down the stairs, half blinded and nearly stumbling as he takes each step with his heel. Ding 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 dong. Ripping open the door, he barks, "Listen, you motherfuck..." Squinting to adjust to the damnably bright morning, his expletive cut off when he realized he didn't recognize the silhouette in front of him. Before the shirtless young man with the greasy face and even greasier hair stood three men of stark contrast. Lanky, coffee-brown fingers continued to mush in the doorbell long after the door was open, like he was prodding a homeless for signs of whether he was dead enough to take his pants. The fingers were matched with an equally wiry frame, ribs visible from the nearly open shirtless sports coat. He was the shortest of the three, but this was accentuated by his pronounced slouch. Reaching across the middle man, the tallest backhanded the Hispanic goblin on the shoulder. "Eyes up, Pachico," growled a German-accented command from beneath a weathered Panama hat. Hunched form remaining unmoved, he craned his neck to the side. Lazy eyes burst into life beneath the cascading, wiry black hairs of his collapsing pompadour mohawk. His wry smile, a sardonic fixture, pulled itself back, becoming eerily earnest. Toothy and wicked, it stretched across his face and morphed into a cry and further a cackle. Still hunched, but now with arms holding his sides, he looked up, then back towards the middle man. "This pendejo? Really? You are so screwed." Now, gentlemen, that is no way to introduce yourselves," said the man in the middle, stepping forward. While the other two were an odd couple, one tall, broad, well put together, and the other a grand marshal from a Peruvian punk parade, they were at least from the century. From his pith helmet to khaki shorts and long socks, he was a walking British anachronism, save for his pair of modern hiking boots. With brow ruffled as the trio came into view, he scoffed. "Sorry, Dr. Livingston, I think you guys have the wrong house." He began to close the door and go back to his meeting with Morpheus. A hand scored with rose-pallided scars held firm the door. "That is Captain Alexander Livingston Raleigh, actually, and if you are Hector Rimos, then we have urgent business to discuss, and no time to dawdle." Hector did not remove his hand from the door, but keeping it right behind him, he walked closer to the entrance with trepidation. In response, Alexander moved back in front of the other two and smiled, hands now clasped in front of him. Warily, Hector asked, "I'm running on like 3 hours. What do you want?" Waving to his right and left respectively, Alexander said, "My colleagues, Heinrich and Matteo, and I, are from disparate groups who on rare occasion form a loose organization called the Pyre. Our main goal is to find and help souls akin to ourselves." "Is this a cult? I'm not joining a cult, sorry," Hector interjected as he leaned on the doorframe folding his arms. "No, lad, not a cult. There are sages and diviners within our groups who, upon revelation, divine those whose souls would burn bright even through their once death, like a torch in the darkness. You carry such a torch, and—" Hector cut him off. "And if I follow you, I'll learn the truths of this world and the next, illuminated by your torch," he replied mockingly. "Nah, I'm good. Like I said, I get these spiels all the time from people who come knocking. Not interested. Just give me your pamphlet and let me go back to sleep." Heinrich placed his hand on Alexander's shoulder and stepped forward. "Boy, we do not have time." Steel gray eyes bore into brown. Self-consciously, he stood up straight in response. With deflating defiance, he opened his arms out, tilted his head, and said with squinting eyes, "What do you want from me?" Heinrich's eyes had widened for a moment and immediately lunged at Hector, taking him clean off his feet before the ceiling crashed in. The ancient oak, once an enabling ally of Hector's campaign against conventional sleeping hours, had just devastated his parents' foyer. The body tackle having forced all the air from his lungs, Hector could only gasp. Sucking the dust from the demolition, Hector is choked by a fit of coughing and wheezing. Now curled, his whole body enlisted in a desperate attempt to breathe, trying to cope, his mind focuses on the only other thing he feels, warm tears streaming down his face. After what felt like an eternity of drowning, he finally catches his breath. He lays unmoving for a moment, utterly exhausted.
He managed to blink the dust from his puffy, tear-soaked eyes enough to see the impaled body of Heinrich laying face down on the floor. A failed attempt to stand left Hector collapsed next to the punctured stranger. Trying to collect himself enough to stand again, the raining pieces of ceiling further distracted the still discombobulated Hector, so much so that he did not notice the sound of wind ramping up in his now porous home. The rushing gale reached a crescendo of combustion, erupting in a harsh stream of electrical buzzing and popping sparks. Crawling now into a staggered step, he pulled his body towards the skewered man. He could not see how deep the twisted, moss-covered branch had dug into his back. Blood had begun to pool within the space between the wood and pierced leather jacket. It was as if Heinrich had struck deep frothy oil in his own back. The odor of fishy mercury and a growing heavy acridness snapped Hector back into the moment. Face grimaced, he bent over and grabbed the branch in two hands, like pulling a sword from a German stone. He pulled hard and slow, and an inch of wood gave way, along with the rush of blood spilling over, streaking and purling across the jacket. The sight and proximity to real blood took Hector off guard, and it sunk back in a half-inch. Hector responded with an agonized moan, still very much alive. A cold hand grasped at Hector's core. Relieved and horrified, he looked down, eyes wide and white, his mouth resembling more a bass than a man. Mind blanked, and with fingers tightened as hard as his eyes, he began to pull again with all he had. Sickening squelches came from Hector's back as blood squirted when the ridges and knots popped out of the skin. With each inch pulled, the wood felt smaller in his hands. A final depleting pull. The gore-strewn branch was pulled an inch from his back. This victory was short-lived. To his dismay, he was met with failed attempts to move the branch to either of Heinrich's sides. The air was even heavier now. Hector struggled for a single breath. The fear of letting go and it goring him again, or worse, yet driving it through another hole, killing him, crippled Hector. He could no longer hold on. Hector's eyes opened wide with panic. A mere moment before his hand slipped, he saw Matteo pulling Heinrich just in time like a black-clad chocolate cherub. The blood-soaked branch slammed to the floor with a wet, cracking thud. Out of reflex, he checked his hands for damage. Abrasion, hands full of splinters, hell, even a large laceration or two, were all things Hector expected. What he didn't and what his mind refused to believe were that his hands were 5 times the usual size. Like the gloves of an anthropomorphic mouse, his hands were comically large. A sharp whistle broke his second trance of the hour. "Hey, pendejo, come give me a hand. This dude is heavy." Getting under Heinrich's right arm, he noticed that while his home was filling with smoke, Matteo was leading him inwards. Through coughs, Hector asked, "Where are we going?" As if in response, the smoke around them started to vacuum in front of them. Alexander stood in front of a large, swirling portal, glowing with a mirage-like image of a location Hector could not place. His body leaned forward, weight shifted on some sort of wrought iron cane, with his other hand covering his nose and mouth in a handkerchief. "This way, lads!" he shouted. "If we abscond from within the house, we may throw the Kyries off a bit." Hector, almost numb with surprise, looked from the portal to Matteo with eyes that desperately plead for some acknowledgement of the absurdity of it all. Matteo held his gaze like a predator, savoring every moment until right before the pounce. His smile peaked as he threw his head back with laughter. "Not even an hour, and look at the mayhem. Shero, this is going to be fun." As they dragged themselves through the portal, Hector realized those words unnerved him more than anything he'd experienced so far. And that is the end of my short story. I want to first thank You Better Work B, at least on Reddit. It says they are the ones who made this. So if you did it, dude, fantastic. Thank you. If not, because I think I found this somewhere on 4chan, whoever made it, thank you. I really appreciate it because I got to make a fun little short story from this. And I want to thank you, whoever right here, you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you putting up with my silliness and all of this. Leave a comment below about, not for any of the fucking stupid YouTube algorithm, that can all suck it. But I want to know specifically what you would choose and why. If you think my reasoning is retarded, because that's probably fair. But if it is retarded, let me know exactly why and what you would do differently. Also, any of you writers out there, give me constructive criticism or just normal criticism about my story, because I want to be better at writing. I want to be better at all things. Life is a struggle. Life is all adventures are a struggle, and through struggle we improve and better ourselves. And I want to improve. So thank you. Until our next adventure, I have been CO. See you later.